Daf Tzadi Beis Amud Beis, New Perek, Mishahoyim. Zok the Mishnah, Mishahoyim Tomei B'derech HaChayka. If someone on Erev Pesach was Tomei, or he was in a distant, far away from the Azara, meaning that the way Rashi defines it, that if from Chatzos, if he would walk by foot, he wouldn't be able to come to the Azara before the end of the day, by nightfall. So if a person is Tomei, or is a B'derech HaChayka, V'lo also has a Rishon, and he did do Pesach Rishon, Yaseh Hasheni. Then he's mechuyev to do Pesach Sheni. So in such a case, these people are pushed off to Pesach Sheni. Shogeg oinenas, it was a shogeg, or an oines, he forgot, or he made a mistake, or he was nenas, it was beyond his control. V'lo yaseh Rishon, didn't do Pesach Rishon, Yaseh Hasheni also does Sheni. So really, therefore, it would seem to be that there's no special significance with Tomei B'derech HaChayka. So why does the Torah specify those cases? So so why does the Torah specify these cases? Now Rashi explains that the question really is on Derech HaChayka, because on Tomei, there is a reason why the Torah specifies it. We understand the reason that it specifies it, because the way Rashi is learning, our Tana holds that ein shaykh them zarkim al Tomei sheretz, that if a person is Tomei sheretz, or a person was Tomei and he could be Torah by nightfall, he was able to eat the Korban Pesach. So our Tana is going with the approach that nevertheless he's Tomei now, even though he would be able to be a Torah and eat the Korban Pesach at nightfall, still you can't shech the Korban Pesach for him, and he's nitcha to Pesach Sheni. So there we do understand why the Torah specifies, because that's a chiddush, because you might say, like the other Mandomar Lamaisa does say, that someone is Tomei to his sheretz, you could perform the avodah for him. So apparently Rashi is holding, our Tana does not hold that way, so the question isn't on Tomei, but it's on Derech HaChayka. What's the difference if it's Derech HaChayka, or if it's not a Derech HaChayka, or if it's an Einus or a Shogeg? So the Gemara answers, that the Mishnah rather answers, She'elu Petur Mekaros Ve'elu Chayav Mekaros, because these are Petur Mekaros, they're potter from Karos, and Ve'elu Chayav Mekaros. And in these cases, they're chayiv in chorus. They're chayiv in chorus if they don't do it. So what does that mean? So the Torah specifies and distinguishes between Tomei B'derech HaChayka, because in those cases, now if he doesn't do the Pesach Rishon, they're potter from chorus. Well, the Tomei can't do it, and the Derech HaChayka also can't do it. What's the difference between him and if it's a shogeg and an einus? And an einus and shogeg, there's no chorus. So as we'll see from the Gemara, what's missing from the latter cases over here is mazid. So in the latter cases are the mazid. There's a mazid that also gets pushed off the Pesach Sheni, and that's a case where someone does the mazid, he doesn't do the Korban Pesach. There's chorus. There's chorus. Now in the case of Derech HaChayka, there's no chorus. Well, how could there be chorus if he's Derech HaChayka? It's beyond his control. He's no different than a case of an onus. So some want to say, the Dvar Shmuel wants to say that in the case of Derech HaChayka, if he is Derech HaChayka, even if theoretically he could get to the Azara, let's say he can get fast horses, and theoretically he would be able to get to the Azara before nightfall. Nevertheless, if he's B'derech HaChayka, the Torah says he's B'derech HaChayka, he's pushed off to Pesach Sheni, and therefore there's no chorus. Even if theoretically he could come to the Azara, there's still no chorus. So the Gemara, Itmar Haya B'derech HaChayka v'shachta v'zar cholav. Let's say he was B'derech HaChayka, and there was a shaliach that did shecht and do the zrika for him on his behalf. Rav Nachman Amar Hurtza. Rav Nachman says that his horse is accepted, and he is now b'yoysa, and he doesn't do Pesach Sheni. Rav Sheshes Amar Loi Hurtza. Rav Sheshes says no, it's not Hurtza, it's not accepted. Rav Nachman Amar Hurtza, he says Mechas Hu Dechas Rachman Olav. He says the Torah has Rachmanus on. He's B'derech HaChayka, and therefore They gave him a second chance to do Pesach Sheni. But the other, Tavel LaBrocha, but if he finds a shaliach to do it for him, Tavel LaBrocha, the Torah was just as makel on him. But if he finds a shaliach, Tavel LaBrocha. Rosh Hashanah Amar Lehurtza says not accepted. Mitcha Dach Yerachmana V'Tomei. He said Rech Dach Yerachmana Kit Tomei. The Torah pushed him off. They said he can't do it, just like a person who's Tomei, can't participate in the Korban Pesach and Pesach Rishon. The Torah equates the two, and the Derech HaChaika has the same halacha. Rav Nachman says, what's my raya that it's hurtza, that it's accepted? It's not, because the Mishnah says, Mishaya Tomei b'derech HaChaika, v'lo yalses Rishon, yalses Sheni. The Torah says, the Mishnah says rather, the Torah says, if a person who's Tomei b'derech HaChaika, he didn't do the Rishon, Iyal says the Sheni. Now, it specifies, he's Tomei b'derech HaChaika, v'lo yalses, and he didn't do the Korban Pesach. Well, he's Tomei, he can't do the Korban Pesach. What do you mean he didn't do? So it says, if he didn't do it, then Iyal says Sheni, Bechlal di boy of it. Well, doesn't it imply that he could have? But he didn't, he does Pesach Sheni. So doesn't it imply that therefore, if he's b'derech HaChaika, theoretically he could have done the Pesach Rishon. He could have appointed a shaliach to do it for him. If he didn't, he's pushed off the Pesach Sheni. So it's a raya that the Derech HaChaika could do the Korban Pesach. Rosh Hashanah Amar Lachia tells you no. Well, therefore, you'll have to make the same diuk in the Sefer. Now, the Sefer says he was a shoygeg or he's a nenas, and he didn't do Pesach Rishon, he does Pesach Sheni. Well, are you going to make the same diuk and say, or are you going to make the same diuk and say, well, he didn't do it, which implies that he could have? Well, how could he? Shaga, by definition, means that he made a mistake, so he didn't realize, or nanos, it was beyond his control. So he didn't have the option of doing the Pesach because he was a shaga nanos. Ella, what must you say? Ella mezid ketani b'hadai. You must say that it's chaser, and there's another case that's missing over here, which is mezid. And it's saying that he could have, therefore, he knew it was Pesach, he was able to come to the Azara, nothing was stopped him beyond his control, but he's amazed and he didn't. And that's why it says v'loy asa. He could have, but he didn't. He does Pesach Sheni. Well, here also in the Reisha, it's also chaser, and say that what's missing is oinen. And oinen is mentioned over here. So the case that it's talking about, that it's oinen that he could have and he didn't, is he's Tomei b'derech HaChaika or an oinen. He's an oinen, and therefore he could have done it. That's how Rav Sheshes just learned, but he didn't, and therefore he does Pesach Sheni. But that's by an oinen. But a b'derech HaChaika does not have that option. Fractais says, well, isn't that mezid? If he's an oinen and he could have done it, but the reason he didn't is because he was so in tsar, and because of his tsar, his sorrow, he didn't do it. The Maisa is a mezid, but he says it's straight out the mezid. It's one type of mezid where he's an outright mezid, and the other one is because of his grief and his sorrow he didn't do it. But the Maisa, that's how Rav Sheshes learns it, that the Sefer is talking about mezid, and the Reisha is talking about where there's also, it's an oinen. Rav Nachman says that Sefer, he agrees that it's talking about mezid, but the Reisha does not refer to an oinen. You can bring a ride from the Mishnah. It says these are Pturim and these are Chaim B'Ikoros. Which case is it referred to? If it's referring to the case of Shogeg and Nenas, Shogeg and Nenas B'nei Koros. There's no Koros for that. There is an Oinen, a Shogeg. It's not Koros. Elava Mezid V'Oinen. It must be that there's chaser, and it's referring to the case of mezid and oinen, and it's referring to mezid and oinen, and that's what it says, that it's referring to these cases that are koris, and the other cases are not koris. So therefore, it's a raya to Rav Sheshes that what's missing from the Mishnah is the Sefer is missing mezid, and the Reisha is what's chaser is the case of oinen. Rav Nachman Amar he tells you no. It's only chaser the case of mezid. It's not referring to the Reisha, is not referring to oinen. Now it shouldn't have said it in the plural. It shouldn't have said chayavin. It should say chay, because it's only talking about one case. It's only the singular. But the reason it says in the plural, that's why it says in the plural. But he says, Rav Nachman says it's only referring to one case, and the reisha is only referring to Tomei Derech Chayka, and the im loy asa rather is loy asa means that he's Derech Chayka. He could have theoretically appointed a shliach, but if he didn't, he's nidcha to Pesach Sheni. What's my raya? That he cannot appoint a shliach to do it on his behalf, because the son Rabbi Kiva the Torah says that if a person is tomei or he's b'derech l'chayka, so it gives these two cases. Just like the case of tomei means sipik b'yoda, he could have brought it, but the Torah says you can. Nevertheless, you can. Meaning, he's a person who's tomei, he's able to bring it, but the Torah says that even if he could, but l'maisa, we don't allow you to. So B'derech Chayka is also referring to a similar case where theoretically he could have found somebody to do it on his behalf, and nevertheless the Torah says no, you can't. Rav Nachman Amalach, Rabbi Kiva L'Tamei. That's Rabbi Kiva L'Tamei, the sovereign Sheikh, the Mizarkim L'Tamei Sheretz, who holds that yes, the case of Tomei is Shesipek Biyada, where theoretically he could have participated in the Korban Pesach. How is it that theoretically he could have participated? Because we're talking about, let's say, a person with Tomei Sheretz, which he will be Tahor at nightfall, or it's the seventh day of his Tumah V'Tum is made. Well, he would be Torah nightfall, so he's able to eat from the Korban Pesach. So theoretically, he could partake from the Korban Pesach. Nevertheless, the Torah says that no, you can't. You can't, even though he will be Torah by nightfall, but a Tomei cannot participate in the Korban Pesach. There, you say Derech Chayka is also similarly in a similar scenario where theoretically he could have participated. The Torah says, nevertheless, he's nidcha to Pesach Sheni. But that's Rabbi Kiva L'Tamei. The Sovereign Sheikh and V'Zarchim L'Tamei Sheretz, that you don't do the shlit and zrika for someone with Tamei Sheretz. But he says, for anos really. But I hold Command Domer Shechta V'Zargim Tamei Sheretz. I hold, like according to Command Domer, says no. If it was a case of Tamei Sheretz, you would be able to do the shlit and zrika on his behalf. He would be able to participate in the Korban Pesach. So therefore, the type of tumah that we're talking about is not sipik b'liyadai, and it's not talking in a case where he's sipik b'liyadai. And similarly, where we're talking about the case of the Derech Chayka is also a case where it's not, where over there it's not sipik b'yada. That's when it's nidcha. But if it's sipik b'yada, and then he would be able to. So just like a tomei, that if it's a tomei sheretz, you could bring it on his behalf. Someone who is b'derech chayka and he appoints a shliach for him to do it on his behalf, also you can bring it on his behalf. And therefore, we would say the comparison is that in both cases, if he's able to partake from the Korban Pesach, you would be able to bring it for him and do it for him. The case of the Tumah, Rav Nachman says, is where we say he can't do it on his behalf, is where he will not be Torah at night, so it's not Sipur B'Yadeh. But in the case of Sipur B'Yadeh, both Tomei and Derech Chayka, he holds that you could do it on his behalf.